Hello and welcome to the Join Dota League Season number 5, European Division 2, and this will be a best of 2 series between Let's Do It and GOOMBA Gaming. And as far as the standings are concerned, this is a pretty important match, as both of these teams are sitting on the verge of position 2 and 3, which is actually very crucial, as the first 2 slots inside the group as a whole go on to the Division 1-2 playoffs. And if you really want to do anything inside Join Dota League and actually win any major prize money, you want to be inside that Division 1 and move on to the MLG Pro League, or whatever it's called. Either way, both of these teams are in contention to do that, and at the very least, this will be a chance to get them to that shot. Although Let's Do It are currently 1 game behind GOOMBA Gaming. If they take this 1-1 or 2-0, this will be a very, very close group, all things considered. To start things off, we'll have Axe and Shadow Fiend banned out by Let's Do It, and for GOOMBA Gaming, they'll ban out the Beastmaster and the Sniper. Pretty interesting to see Beastmaster banned so early on, but what's not really interesting is Troll Warlord and Juggernaut. We've seen these heroes time and time again since they weren't banned. GOOMBA Gaming will be happy to snag them up for their side. For Let's Do It, they are going to waste no time. They'll pick up their Io and Tiny to open things up, and they can do decently well against Troll and Juggernaut. I don't think either team are really going to be heartbroken about what the enemy team has gotten, although, yeah, it looks like both teams are just going to be content giving each other their comfort zone, or at the very least, heroes that they are comfortable with. There are a lot of supports that are left in the pool that are very high-tiered and would work very nicely with either lineup. Vengeful Spirit comes to mind, as does the Lion. Neither of them touched as of yet. Io, if you have a Juggernaut, especially if there's that amp damage coming out from the Vengeful Spirit minus armor, Io is just going to melt, and the Tiny both, and really Venge is great on the enemy side too, or rather on the Let's Do It side, as that Vengeance aura scales so incredibly well with Tiny. Later in the game, you can get upwards of 60 to 100 damage just from having the Vengeful Spirit close. To put that in perspective, that's like handing Tiny 2 free Demon Edges, which is redonkulous. If you can get your supports to do that, as well as just having the defensive capabilities of both the Io and the Venge, could be amazing. To see the bans already, we'll have Witch Doctor and Ancient Apparition taken out of the pool. Let's Do It are going to ban 2 heroes that are very good against the Io Tiny combination. Disruptor is the one that's left available that's quote-unquote counter, but it's fair enough to see the Witch Doctor and AA ban. Being able to shut down the Tether heals with the AA's Ice Blast and having the concussive, or paralyzing cask as well as that Death Word is very annoying for the Let's Do It combination. Brewmaster actually, the ban from GOOMBA Gaming, and pretty interesting too. Venge and Batrider have somehow managed to slip their way towards the second picking stage, and both teams are going to have them at their disposal. I don't expect GOOMBA Gaming to pick up the bat here, as that would be pretty much a no-brainer Venge pick for Let's Do It, and if they don't pick up the bat, then Let's Do It might just end up snagging it themselves. So it's really a bit of a tricky situation when it comes to the draft. I think the safest route is to just go for the Vengeful Spirit. But instead, they'll get the Earthshaker, and it's going to offer them some nice defensive capabilities against Let's Do It. Fissure can be very disruptive for Io Tiny, as they want to maneuver around pretty freely throughout the team fights, and Fissure can be a literal brick wall in front of them as they try to do that, and more than anything, just a really solid support. It's really hard to knock Earthshaker. He's just so wonderful. Fissure is probably one of the best normal skills inside the game. Dazzle actually going to be the pickup for Let's Do It. Is going to somewhat patch the weakness of Io and Tiny having very low base armor with the weave, and the heals coming out once tethered up are going to be pretty immense onto the Tiny himself, and Shallow Grave, a wonderful tool. But it does surprise me quite a bit that Lion and Venge haven't been touched yet, as those are just so staple in the meta currently. GOOMBA Gaming should feel a lot more comfortable picking up the Batrider if they want to go for it, as Let's Do It have already picked up 2 of their theoretical supports, and probably won't be looking to get any more. However, GOOMBA Gaming are also lacking a tad bit of lockdown here. All that they have is the Earthshaker, and by no means is that bad. But it's also not great either, and this isn't going to help. It's going to be a Phoenix for GOOMBA, but what it is going to make up for is just a nice big AoE teamfight ultimate to contribute to the mix, with Let's Do It not having the greatest of teams to shut down a Phoenix early on, as well as not a great team to kill off the egg. If the Fire Spirits land, a very useful tool at dealing with Tiny's DPS. That attack speed slow is pretty damning on a hero that already struggles to get that attack speed up. And inside the lane, it's going to be, presumably, a Dazzle +1 up against the Phoenix. And, although in most situations, Phoenix does struggle a lot to get experience inside the lane, I think this game might be an exception. So it's a good pick for GOOMBA, I'd say, but I really would have liked to see them pick up something a little bit more stable, or pick up their other support, or what have you. Either way, Batrider going to be the choice for Let's Do It. And, well, I think they'll ban out the Vengeful Spirit just to secure that Batrider a little bit of a better time, but regardless, it's going to give them a nice global way to start fights. Although Let's Do It's team lineup is a little damage light, all that they have right now is the Tiny. They have another pick to remedy that somewhat, and maybe they go for something along the lines of a Storm Spirit. No natural silences coming out from GOOMBA Gaming. Nobody's going to be picking up Orchid at any normal time, and Earthshaker is also not the greatest at dealing with Storm. A Fissure is pretty much all you can do to disrupt him, and although usually the Fissure block is really nice against a lot of heroes, against Storm, not so much. GOOMBA are going to be most scared of the Viper, but I really would like to see Let's Do It just hammer in with that Storm pick that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Outside of that, if they really want to just go hard into the lanes, they could pick up the Razor, which I think is probably a little bit underpicked right now, especially against the likes of Troll and Juggernaut, heroes that want to get right on top of you, and that can be very heavily punished by the static link coming out from the Razor. But it's also something to keep in mind that Let's Do It are not necessarily going to be throwing excuse me, a hero towards the mid lane. They have a lot of flexibility when it comes to how these heroes actually get shuffled down. It probably is going to be an IO Tiny dual mid lane and a Batrider towards the off lane, or at least that's the most standard way that we've been seeing it as of late, but still could be something entirely different altogether. Vengeful Spirit was the ban coming out from Let's Do It, just further securing the Batrider, but GOOMBA Gaming will pick up the Skywrath Mage. It is going to give them a nice way to amp up the Phoenix, Earthshaker, and Blade Fury damage, and the last pick for Let's Do It is going to be a Bristle. Pretty interesting all around. The Bristleback right now isn't going to have the easiest of times, but then again, if given enough space, could be a literal thorn in GOOMBA Gaming's side. It's an interesting pick. I would have liked to see something a little bit more mobile, but maybe that Skywrath Mage 5th is going to dissuade that a little bit. Well, we'll transition into the game, and hopefully everybody will load in without any problems. A little bit of a side note, if anybody wanted to be watching Top versus Fixstanga, that game was actually cancelled as Top have forfeited. So this is currently the only joint Dota game going on for the time being, at least in European Division 2. That said, we'll introduce our teams with RMN taking on the Skywrath Mage, Exist on the Troll Warlord, EDE on the Earthshaker, Gasha going to be playing on the Jug, and Chill on the Phoenix. For Let's Do It, Sasu going to be playing on the Batrider, Supreme on the Bristleback, Lisash on their Lisash on the Dazzle. Sorry, man, I am going to mispronounce that name. Nisha going to be playing on the Io, and Exotic Deer on the Tiny. Good to go comes out from GOOMBA Gaming, and hopefully Let's Do It will quickly return, and we'll go into the game without any further ado. Good to go comes out from Let's Do It, and well, let's see how these lanes are going to shake down. For now, the Io is tethered up to the Batrider, just making sure the Bat gets out to the lane a little bit faster with boots first, as well as with the Io tether. Sasu should be able to secure that he gets out to that rune spot as fast as possible, although I don't expect Nisha to actually be partnered with this Batrider throughout the game. This is just to make sure that that vision is secure. He'll probably end up going towards mid with the Tiny. Dazzle currently sitting inside the base. I have no idea what his plan actually is. They have no courier. It's dropped inside the base, and Dazzle is going to end up plopping that one on the ground. Batrider is going to be able to get his ward out, but I believe that was spotted by GOOMBA. So if they have the money for a D-ward on either of their supports, which it looks like the answer to that question is no, they would be able to take out that ward. To my knowledge, I don't think this actually blocks any camps, and if it does, it's going to be this medium camp over here, which is going to deny pull-throughs, but at the very least, GOOMBA, knowing that the ward is somewhere in this vicinity, should be able to work around that pretty easily just by stacking up this camp if they do want to pull. Then again, Sasu can very easily steal that, and as long as he has intel over the enemy supports, should be good. Forced to skill Firefly level 1 as the Fissure block was there, but outside of that, nothing major happening. Top rune spot going to be secured by the Dire, although there is a Phoenix inbound, ready to Icarus dive. He is being completely zoned out by the Bristleback. Bottom lane again. Ooh, we might see some action. The rune is going to be snagged by Tiny, but at the cost of his own life. Exotic Deer fissured off, going to be running towards the left, but an Arcane Bolt and RMN secures first blood. Tiny just getting a little overzealous, trying to go for that early bounty rune. I think that Let's Do It probably should have been happy just to get the one. Instead, they're going to end up giving a nice little golden experience advantage towards Goomba to start things off, and that's actually pretty bad. That secures your sentries as well as smoke for RMN, and a pretty scary start for these two supports. They'll be opened up to roam pretty easily. As Juggernaut up against the Batrider isn't under any immediate pressure and can usually just spit away under most circumstances. Phoenix, however, on the other hand, is not having a great time at all, being zoned completely by the Dazzle. Sentry is going to try to deny any ward vision coming out from the Phoenix, but he actually didn't place his ward over in that vicinity. In fact, he's going to this offlane mostly blind. They do have vision over the top rune spot, but that's about it. Really, with just 3 arm to work with, all he's getting is from the Ring of Protection. This Phoenix is just taking too much damage, and as far as offlaners are concerned, a very fragile one at that. Earthshaker has meandered his way towards mid, helping Exist out a little bit against this way, just making sure he doesn't die. Defensive Fissures should keep Exist safe 9 times out of 10, but outside of that, looks like we're in for a tad bit of a slow start. After that first blood, there's no immediate threat on any of these heroes, although the Phoenix is going to get zoned out pretty heavily, unless he makes a super aggressive move. I don't expect Chill to actually end up dying, as there's just not any lockdown coming out from this lane. No real way for them to stop the Icarus dive, and although they do have a decent amount of physical damage coming out from that lane, it shouldn't be enough, and, well, as soon as I say that, they're probably going to kill him off, but without any support rotations, I think that that's just not a possibility, and really, Io isn't a hero that can rotate very easily, or very effectively either. So, Let's Do It are going to be pretty happy to farm up, but then again, so are Goomba with Exist as well, as down towards bottom, Gasha doing quite a decent amount of work. It's actually very interesting to see them get out last hit so heavily in the first couple seconds of this game. 6 and 3 on the Tiny, 4 and 5 on the Batrider, 2 and 0 on the Bristleback and Batrider. I have switched the way, 4 and 5 on the Bristleback, 2 and 0 on the Batrider, and 1 and 2 on the Io. And really, Goomba are working with hardly anything at all. This troll has been eating a little bit of pressure, and I think most surprisingly for me is that Gasha is missing a couple here and there. This should be remedied over the next couple minutes. I expect that to balance out, but is something to keep in mind. Well then, we'll just sit and chill. Good to go comes out from both sides. And, well, we'll get back into the status quo. Exotic Deer will farm up. As of yet, no major stacks being built up by the IO, although it is something that they should keep in mind. The Dazzle might be the one to end up working on that as soon as he feels that the Phoenix is sufficiently zoned. And for now he is. Only level 1 and a little bit. He can spam Fire Spirits to his heart's content, but at level 1, that spell just isn't very attractive. Although it might not be the Tiny to clear them up, as Sasu, now with level 2, wants to make his way towards the jungle and secure a faster Blink Dagger. At this point, this is going to secure the lane for the Juggernaut, as in a 1v0 lane, you must be doing something wrong if you're going to lose that one, and, well, he shouldn't. Gasha is going to be able to get a nice amount of farm, and pretty freely at that. Troll finds himself in point-blank range with Nisha actually going to drop the Io very low. Tossed up, they have a Fissure coming through. Can he actually secure this kill? Now with the bottle charges up on Nisha, and the Io is going to survive. In fact, going for the bounty route. Pretty risky, but in the end going to go unpunished, as nobody from Goomba is anywhere close. But that is very scary inside this middle lane if you do get a little too overzealous. Troll Warlord is all too happy to just chunk you down, but the avalanche coming through, the defensive Fissure is there, and Nisha might get turned around upon, and indeed will do so. The toss isn't enough damage, and Exist survives. My goodness. Defensive play coming out from the Earthshaker on point. EDE has been sitting here throughout the entire time, and LDI just a little bit overconfident in their burst combination of the Tiny. Currently only level 3, it definitely has a long way to go before it's there to 100 to 0 targets. He'll jump back with the IO. That extra fountain regen is going to pump the Tiny back up to full HP and mana. But still, even though the troll isn't CSing well, is still able to find a little bit of an opening and a nice bit of a start. Well then, IO Orbs going to get Vision of EDE. That's not going to net them anything, however. In fact, yeah, really didn't do much of anything. As far as our other lanes are really not that interesting. Gasha free farms in bottom, as to be expected. And, well, Bristleback farms up top, as the Phoenix has managed to find himself level 2, but that's about it. And that's only because the Dazzle is going for pulls at the time being, wanting to get that lane a little bit further under control. Alrighty. Well then, let's see. Sasu has come back down to the bottom lane. His lane is pushing into the tower, so he wants to be there to get that extra bit of experience, as Io is the one to prep up the next round of stacks for him. But this Blink Dagger for the Bat Rider should be coming out at a nice timing for himself, and all things considered should be pretty nice. Smoke up from the Skywrath Mage, looking to put an end to this free time in mid. They'll open up with ranged axes, concussive shot flying through, Fissure from long range, and Exotic Deer's in a whole lot of trouble. He does have the IO coming in from the sidelines, but he doesn't make it up to the high ground, and the heals are just not enough. He'll get the Avatos over in the Skywrath Mage, dropping him low, but in the end it doesn't matter, as GOOMBA have found themselves with a 3-0 kill advantage. The last one going the way of the Troll Warlord. Well then, all things considered, this game is looking pretty even because of the CS advantage that LDI have found themselves in, but GOOMBA are leading in kills, so really I think it's pretty neck and neck, even though the 3-0 kill score does suggest that GOOMBA are getting a lot more than they are, mostly because against a dual lane troll just doesn't fare entirely well, especially when they have killing potential that the IO and Tiny combination do. Phoenix dropping low up towards top, but isn't going to end up dying. Again, we're seeing the weakness of the low armored hero that is Phoenix, but Chill again is going to be surviving and has managed to find himself level 3 IO Tiny in mid, find themselves a free Troll Warlord with some help from the Bat Rider. I'm not even sure if that was entirely necessary. They're just able to Avatos him down without the Earthshaker there. If the Earthshaker isn't inbound, it's really easy to kill off that troll, and the only reason he hasn't died so far was because of those defensive fissures previously. The supports are freed up to move around the map, and that's really nice for GOOMBA's side as their Juggernaut continues his free time in bottom. They'll set their sights trying to secure mid again. The Eye is going to go for the top rune, as that's going to be spawning in 6 minutes, and also potentially farming up a couple of camps with the last bit of those spirits remaining. Bat Rider still farming up, about halfway towards his Blink Dagger. It's not going to be the fastest one you've ever seen, but it's also not going to be the slowest. In fact, it's going to be pretty darn good. About 8 minutes till he finds that. Niche up towards top, silence up. They have a fissure as well as can get some shot, and it looks like Aya is just dead. He was a little too greedy there, and they'll be able to punch him down as Earthshaker notches himself yet another kill. Or rather, another kill for his team. Earthshaker hasn't actually gotten the last hits there. Avatos attempted in mid, but now the turnaround power from exists. He's going to get tossed under tower, but isn't enough to save him with the fissures coming through. And the arcane bolts and the concussive shot. They get a lucky bash, and Eid gets himself a double kill with that enchant totem. GOOMBA, again, their fighting power at this point is just a little bit greater up against the Tiny by himself. Without his IO partner, it's really hard for him to stay inside the lane and really do much of anything. I don't think this really changes the status quo of the game that much. As soon as Sasu gets his Blink Dagger, that's when LDI should look to make an aggressive move. He's actually jumped out of the jungle for a little bit longer, so the Bat Rider Blink is going to be delayed a tad bit, but shouldn't harm them that much. For the Bristleback, looks like he's going to have a completed Vanguard flying out to him any second now, as he has been pretty much untouched. And, well, every time the Phoenix attempts to, Chill just ends up getting a face full of quills, so that's not a happy place for pretty much any bird. A lot of Dire Heroes converging around the mid lane, but their actual ability to get kills is pretty limited. Looks like they just want to secure this extra bit of farm for the Bat Rider. Double stack in that medium camp over there, and well, unfortunately for him, no other stacks, but still Sasu is going to be able to find himself a nice infusion of gold. In fact, after these stacks, he's going to be dangerously close to getting that mighty Blink Dagger that I've been talking so much about already. It is just that sort of item that completely changes the face of the game, and there's really no such leap of power for the Phoenix. Although level 6 is really nice and all, Chill is going to need a little bit more time in order to really get into this game. It is growth and power is a little bit more linear. Wraparound from Nisha, going to tether up to the, the Bristleback, but an Icarus dive away by Chill is going to be enough to keep him safe. They have no way to cancel it. And while their lack of lockdown is kind of apparent here, without the Bat Rider or without the Tiny, they really just have no way of getting these kills. Well then, we'll have to see where this first Blink Dagger gank is going to end up going. Bat Rider is going to mop up enough gold in order to get that after this stack is mopped up. He probably won't rely on one of his supports to buy a smoke, but regardless, it's still going to be a really scary opening. GOOMBA up towards top, going to slow down the Bristleback as well as drop concussive shot into him, but their damage just isn't enough onto Supreme. He's very slow when it comes to attacking, so can't actually get a turnaround. In the meantime, Tiny finds himself an Abatos combo onto the Troll Warlord, finding an easy kill there. Now the turnaround power from LDI is real. The Fire Spirits are still activated onto We Are Lost, but he's still going to continue this chase. The concussive shot is going to buy them enough space, but still, Supreme is just going to dive the tower like a man because he can, with this Quill Stack stacking up onto EDE. With 4 and just one more Bash and an IO Spirit, that's all that they need. LDI get themselves on the board, and in a pretty big way too. 3 to 5 is going to be our kill score, and they get a tier 1 tower in top. And that solo kill in mid is going to be really nice for the Tiny Bull. Tier 1 tower in mid is also going to end up taking a spell destroyed by the IO, as they'll get a little bit of extra gold on their supports. And LDI have found themselves in a nice position to start taking some map control away from GOOMBA, as pretty much everything is going right for them. Really, they need this Juggernaut to do something at this point. GOOMBA, they've gotten a lot of farm onto Gasha, but Gasha hasn't made any rotations, hasn't really done anything with this farm. He was involved in that first blood kill for GOOMBA, and that's nice and all, but really doesn't end up doing much of anything. They'll just continue farming away with the Quelling Blade delivered on top of the Morbid Mask and a Ring of Aquila. And he'll be able to farm pretty fast, but let's see, LDI might be able to put an end to this, as Asu does have that Blink Dagger, is smoked up and looking for rotation into the enemy woods. Isn't going to be met with anybody. In fact, everybody is over towards mid and looking for a smoke of their own, pinged out by the Juggernaut. They're going to find themselves a pretty free IO. Slowed down long-range fissure, but he's able to get the tether away towards the Tiny. Avalanche is going to land into exist, but they don't want to throw the toss. Silence onto the Tiny as Gasha looks for the Omni Slash, obliterates the IO, and now looks for a little bit more. Can't fight Exotic Deer, however, that smoke is only going to net them 1 kill. And honestly, I think that's okay for LDI. What's not okay is that they didn't get the kill from that first showing off of the Bat Rider Blink Dagger. This has been shown away to a Radiant Observer Ward, so they know about this. In fact, they know about the exact whereabouts of this Bat Rider as he looks down towards bottom lane. Do they have any way to bridge the gap? They have a concussive shot, and that's about it. Can they catch him as he goes through the woods? Not likely. He's partnered up with the Bristleback. Healing word on the ground. Firefly going to be connected. There's their fissure onto 2, but there's a relocate as well from the IO. Tiny to get the Avalanche toss. Toss doing no damage to Gasha. He is spinning, but still does quite a chunk to EDE. They have a lasso who they're getting committed onto Gasha. The Supernova is flying through. Can they actually focus this down in time with the Fire Spirits? No, they can't. Exotic Deer going to go down. The toss is going to kill off 1, and the Bristleback's still doing a lot of damage. The cool stacks are stacking up onto Troll Warlord. Blink over to the sidelines from Sasu. Will right-click down Gasha. Troll is still alive, but only for a little bit longer. One more quill stack. It's triple kill for the Bristleback, and he just goes through this fight unanswered. Chill back into his normal form, already having spent the Icarus dive and everything at his disposal. We might just end up getting dove under this tower with upwards of 20 armor on this Bristleback, but in the end they'll decide better of it. 4 for 2 is going to be then trade, although they lose their IO Tiny combination. Bristleback at this point is a one-man wrecking crew, and GOOMBA just don't have the damage, especially without having the Omni Slash, having previously spent that onto an IO. Really, Supreme is Supreme this game. If they hadn't have lost their Tiny, they would be in a much better situation this game. But after cleaning up a couple of stacks, he's also going to be still pretty comfortable when it comes to the farm that he's getting, especially compared to the Troll. And his immediate impact probably going to be a little bit more as well. LDI find themselves a nice engagement, and now we'll potentially look for a little bit more. We have Blink Dagger and the makings of a forest for the Bat. We'll blink up towards top, mop up the creep wave, and that's about it. His lasso is still on cooldown for 10 seconds. His immediate ability to look for fights is a little bit limited. Okay then, boundary rune going to be secured by Radiant, it seems, and top rune going to be picked up by the IO. Tiny, as they'll use that to refill their mana and health, ready to go about their daily business. For now, LDI are going to slow down a little bit as they just look to farm up and wait until they have the ability to look for that Blink Dagger lasso as well as relocate gank. But really, as an IO Tiny, you can take this a little bit later. Maybe that's not the case, actually. As Exotic Deer has picked up a Blink Dagger, so maybe they want to just look for fights now. And really, if they go for this Blink, I think that that should be the course of action. They are just so much more powerful than Goomba, especially this Bristleback, who is going to go for a Sange next. Whether this is an S&Y or whether it's a Heaven's Halberd, it's going to be an amazing item to have on this hero. Both teams have backed off onto their sides of the map, however, and neither one have made a move. Really, I think if you're going to go for this playstyle on Tiny and just going to be farming up a little bit more, going for drums or even the straight-up Aghanim Scepter would have been a little bit better for Exotic Deer. We'll just have to see how this plays out. 1-4-5. Exotic Deer's not having the worst game, but also not having the best. Alrighty then. Bristleback going to bump into Gasha. There is an Omni Slash, but really the damage just isn't there. In fact, he's going to turn. There is a Skyroth Mage coming in from the sidelines, but also coming is the smoked up Dazzle and Bat Rider. They're going to Firefly up in the air soon, looking for RMN. If they can actually find him, they are going to instant silence onto the Bat Rider. However, they have the high ground vision, so are going to die. Then the lasso eventually connects onto the Troll. They have a toss, but can't actually connect onto it. The Mystic Flare isn't going to do enough damage because of the shallow grave onto the Bat. Eventually, he's going to burn down to the Fire Spirits. Is the grave enough? It is! He survives on very low HP. Now the IO Tiny looking to chase for a little bit more. Blink in for the toss. They catch out Chill, and they're going to find themselves a very easy Phoenix pickoff as Supreme notches himself a dominating spree. Although constant Dazzle, as Juggernaut looks like he just Omni slashed that one down. Doesn't seem to be mattering much. 9-9, our kill score is even out a lot as LDI look to make it a little bit more impactful. Juggernaut, without his Omni Slash, is a very susceptible kill, or even going into the Roshan pit. Although they don't have any lifesteal, the sustain coming out from the IO with an urn should be enough to make sure that they're able to get this one down. And they also have the minus armor coming out from Supreme. And, well, looks like this is going to be successful. Goomba, although they do know about this, are they fast enough to actually make a contention inside the pit? The Bat Rider's nowhere close, and maybe they can. Roshan falling low. They send in the healing ward to scout this one out. Killed off by the IO, and there's your Roshan down. Aegis towards the Bristleback. Now the fight's going to break out. Fisher connects on the 3, as does the ranged Axis. Avalanche going to miss on the Gasha. He is completely spun up. He's not doing enough damage, however. It's only level 1 into the spin. He's going for that more farming style build. Satsu dropping low to the Troll, but doesn't end up dying as the fight breaks out onto the backline. Sunray onto both the Tiny as well as the Dazzle isn't going to be doing enough damage either, as this fight is completely spread out. Bristleback joining the fray up towards top, going to kill off the Troll as LDI look to reset and re-go in. They have all of their heroes at the ready, but in the end it's one kill as well as a free Roshan for them. And Exotic Deer is not done yet. He has an Avalanche toss, but doesn't end up finding anybody. Goomba aren't greedy enough to stick around and farm that large camp. Immediately after the fact, LDI going to go into the tier 2 tower in the middle lane. And Goomba, they've spent a lot in order to take this fight. Lucky enough for them, they have a Phoenix Supernova, but it's not going to help if you get lassoed and Avalanche down. 5-man fissure, going to be pretty nice, but not nice enough. Bristleback is a little bit stuck, and Nish is dropping low, but with a couple heals from the Dazzle as well as an Urn Charge, should be back up and running in no time. The tier 2 tower in mid is almost assuredly going to fall. Goomba just don't have the tools that they need to actually fight back. Juggernaut is the only one that's keeping up, and Juggernaut alone just can't do it. And, well, their Troll, Phoenix, in fact, everybody on their team is getting out-farmed by an IO, and that's scary, mostly because of the vast amount of map pressure that they're applying and how much they're getting out of it. EDE does have a Blink Dagger up for the Earthshaker, so maybe this is a big turning item for Goomba, but honestly, it kind of has to be. Their heroes just aren't pulling enough weight for the time being, as LDI continue to exert their map control. Although, the, Aghanim Scepter is going to be delayed a tad bit, coming out from the Tiny. It's still about halfway there, unless he has anything else in the career. Not going to be the case. But it still leaps and bounds ahead of what his counterpart on the enemy side has, which is pretty much nothing. Troll Warlord does not manage to find himself any further farm other than that Ogre Club that he picked up 5 minutes ago, it feels. Yeah, LDI. They're looking to snowball this game to victory, but they are going to wait until Tiny gets a little bit more before they look for an aggressive move like that again. The Aegis on the Bristleback does have a decent chunk of duration left in it, but it looks like they don't really want to 5-man and Death Bolt down another lane. They'll just keep up this pressure. Tier 1 tower up towards top. Definitely defendable by LDI. At the drop of a hat, they can bring in the IO Tiny. But maybe they look for the Juggernaut instead. They have a deep ward, and although this Juggernaut does have a DD, if they get the lasso off onto him, could be disastrous, but they're not going to be able to get in range for the Blink Lasso, and without the Blink Lasso, they don't want to do it. as it would be very difficult for the IO Tiny to actually get in range. And now with Gasha, double damage rune in tow, looking for the Omni Slash. He's going to turn around. This could be disastrous. The Blink Dagger cooling down in 1 second. Mask of Madness trying to find the space. He's going to get lassoed back into the Tiny. They get the Avalanche. They don't even need the toss. The burst damage is there, and that Mask of Madness ending up hurting a lot more than it helps. Everybody from the Radiant side is going to be forced to TP back, as that pincer move coming out from LDI would have been disastrous if it actually connected, as if it wasn't already. Juggernaut, as I've already said, is really the only thing that GOOMBA are happy about as far as his position inside this game, and really, he's not enough. Sanj on the Troll Warlord, I don't feel like it's going to have enough impact to really do anything this game, and yet another Tier 2 tower is going to fall in the favor of LDI. Honestly, I think they probably should have given the Aegis to somebody else, as this Bristleback seems immortal. Mostly because GOOMBA don't want to focus him, and maybe that's the reasoning why, but honestly, I think the Tiny could have made better use of it, but still, LDI are strangling GOOMBA out at this point. The only Tier 2 remaining is in the bottom lane, and nobody is safe, really, on the GOOMBA side. Bristleback is just happily bopping away at this Tier 3 tower. He has the Aegis in tow. He actually has not a fear in the world. He'll be able to get out cleanly and hardly drops below a third of his health. Aegis is going to be reclaimed in about a minute, so it's unlikely that we're going to see any other objectives taken before that is reclaimed. But still, LDI are going to be happy with what they've gotten. Currently, the advantage that they have in gold is 12,000, and the net worth, RAF, and experience is, well, let's see, about 10,000 there. Leaps and bounds ahead of GOOMBA. What do they do to get back into this, I wonder? GOOMBA's team lineup isn't the greatest at coming from behind, but it really kind of feels like they need to wait for a high ground defense before they can really start grabbing control away from LDI again. They rely on them all getting grouped up for the big wombo combo. Troll Warlord, that's not the play, as he gets lassoed back in mid, pulled miles away from any support, and he'll get burst down in a heartbeat. LDI find yet another pick off for themselves, and Bristleback in the meantime is still pushing in the bottom lane. Yeah, he's really being unanswered. This Tier 2 tower in bottom probably going to get taken out, and although his Aegis isn't going to be doing much for him, yeah, it's going to get reclaimed right about now. It doesn't matter. Full pool of mana is more than enough for him. Tiny going to be able to cleave down the tower with a toss, as well as a couple bashes with that tree, and they are going to look to go for even more. GOOMBA aren't in any great position to defend. They're instead looking for a trade up towards top, but trading against the Tiny is never something you want to be doing. Now tethered up with the IO, they'll start beating down this tower. It's already at half HP, and LDI really have committed nothing. They'll slow down Exotic Deer. They get a nice Fissure Block off onto the Tiny. Can't actually get over that ravine, but for now, he's still surviving. The Fire Spirits are doing a lot of work. The Avalanche does miss. Doesn't seem it's going to matter. Exotic Deer with so much sustain coming out from the Dazzle, as well as IO combination, is proving to be too much. The extra armor coming out from the Dazzle is pushing their armor to the point of obscene. Now that it's expired, it's a little bit better for them, but with it activated, it's pretty much like giving everybody a free call. Blink out, Force Staff out by the Bat Rider, going to be enough to keep him safe, but the Tier 3 tower not going to be so lucky, as GOOMBA just couldn't find that high ground defense fight that they really needed. And with that down, LDI are going to be happy, and we'll probably just wait until they get that Assault Cuirass up for the Bristleback before they go for anything more. But really, the Bristle is huge. There's not another word for it. He's already a hard hero to kill, even when you're on even footing, but much less when you're this far behind. The Troll needs more, is currently being outfarmed by the enemy IO, and although it's not going to transition into the item that I would have loved to see from Nisha, I would have loved to see a Vladimir's offering to give lifesteal to both the Tiny and the IO, or both the Tiny and the Bristleback, but regardless, the Ghost Scepter means that Nisha's hard to deal with, and I think it's just a bad omen to see him out-farming the enemy mid, who really just hasn't been able to catch back up into this game. Exist at this point is being out-farmed vastly by everybody, or every core at the very least, on LDI. Boots of Travel up for the Bat Rider. This global ganking potential coming out from LDI is huge, and really I don't think I can talk it up enough. This game is going to have to be thrown by them in order for a comeback to be mounted by GOOMBA, or at the very least GOOMBA need a miraculous fight. Can they find it? Gasha's item build, although it's good, don't get me wrong, getting the Mask of Madness and S&Y is usually great for this point in the game. It's just that he doesn't have a team behind him, and it's not an item that's going to allow you to 1v5. They'll set their sights on the Bristleback up towards top. He's pushing out alone, but what can they actually do about him? Looks like the order of business for the Dire is just to wait out the next Roshan, and once they get that extra life, for the Bristleback, or maybe for somebody else, they'll be able to just barrel down the enemy side. Looks like it's not going to be an Assault Cuirass after all for the Bristleback. They'll instead leave that for the Tiny to pick up. And, well, fair enough. They'll get 2 really big aura items just the same, and that extra spamming ability coming out from the quills is going to be really nice for the Bristlebonker here. Tiny is farming up the enemy woods, and Goomba are restricted to pretty much their side of the map, or at least their base, really. Even though they have some ward vision out and about, it's not enough. It really isn't helping them at all at this point. They're never going to be pushing up into this zone of the map to where this ward is actually going to be doing them anything. And really, I think their wards would be better served if they were a little bit more defensive. At the very least, they have one. And, well, that's all you can hope for. Blinking Lasso. The Batrider has found himself a troll, but where's the follow-up? There's your follow-up with the relocate in from the IO Tiny. There's an Echo Slam thrown. Exotic Deer is dropping low inside the Mystic Flare and inside the spin, but with the Grave and the heals coming out from the IO Dazzle, it's too much. They'll be able to bash down the egg coming out for the Phoenix. It wasn't high enough level for him to survive. Relocate out by the Tiny IO. They are going to survive for a little bit longer. Gosh is just being incessantly kited. The minus armor is insane coming out from the Weave, as well as the Medallion. The right clicks from the Batrider are even hurting. And Gasha, he's trying to win this man fight. Can he even do it? No. Batrider ends up dying, buys back into this game because he has to. His bottom lane is getting demolished. Tiny and Io going to town as Bristleback zones out the entire team by himself. Supreme now in a man fight with the Juggernaut, as well as the Troll is in a bit of a pickle, and now Exotic Deer is also stunned up, but Supreme is going to be able to back off. In fact, he wants back in. He gets a Grave and some healing support from the Dazzle, and they're all going to survive. Just look at that. Goomba can't even leave their fountain if they want to be safe. The bottom lane has already been taken as LDI find themselves with a big advantage. Goomba, at this point, I think they're pretty much shot. What do they actually do to come back? That was their hope for the team fight, but the graph is not moving in the right direction. It's in fact getting even worse, as LDI have extended their lead to ridiculous proportions for 24 minutes into the game, and it's going to get to a point where Goomba can't actually do anything. In fact, I think it's pretty much at that point. Because this is an important game in the JDL standings, they're not going to tap out now, and they're going to go for these last-ditch effort smokes. But I think it really is all of that. They have the gem up for the Skywrath Mage, and maybe, just maybe, they can get some map control back. But with Gasha pushing out lanes so far out, and with Batrider coming in from the sidelines, they need to get there faster. There is a relocate at the ready. Maybe they can turn around onto this bat, but instead he decides against it. It's pretty obvious that they're doing something behind this Juggernaut, else he wouldn't be pushing out this lane all this far out. Can they actually bridge the gap on Nasazu? Doesn't look like that's the case, although Troll is coming in for the big wraparound. Is going to connect with ranged access? No, not even going to do that. Blink away is going to keep Batrider completely safe. LDI are pushing out mid, and although Goomba might be able to get a tier 2 tower up in the top lane, if you let this Tiny have any space in this mid lane, they're going to lose another set of barracks. That's just not something they can afford. They can't trade against this giant rock golem, especially when he has this little flashbulb IO behind him. Yeah, Tiny has a completed Assault Cuirass up, as well as from here on out it's smooth sailing. Goomba are just waiting in the wings, and they have to play reactionary this game. There's no real openings for them to make any more aggressive movements or really look for anything. Roshan will be taken out by LDI with the minus armor coming out from the Medallion, as well as the Assault Cuirass. He's getting bashed down. Now the Fuse also stacking up against the realm of ridiculous in the -8 currently. And well, there's your double life for the Tiny. Quelling Blade casually inside the pit. But who cares? It doesn't actually matter much, as LDI now, with all of the tools in the world to go headlong into the enemy team, are going to do just that and barrel down for a second lane. Constantly, this bottom lane is going to be a nuisance for Goomba, as the only hero that can really clear it out is the Juggernaut, and even then, it's not the fastest of clear. And without the Jug, they can't actually fight. They just need time, really. And I don't think that LDI are going to give that to them. They're going to push up this mid lane, and Tiny currently cleaving down this tower. Even with the slowed attack speed coming out from the Fire Spirits, he's still able to do a decent amount of damage with the Assault Cuirass and the overcharge attack speed at the ready. Again, Bristleback just zones out the enemy team. He's diving tier 4s because he can. Blink and Lasso, they find themselves chill. Can they bring down this Phoenix before he gets off the Supernova? Yes, they can. Not even a chance. Gasha looks for the Omni Slash, but the damage just isn't there. It gets spread between too many heroes, and Gasha gets right-clicked down. 70 seconds on the line for the Juggernaut as Bristleback dives tier 4s because he can. Going to bash down one more as the melee barracks in mid gets taken out, and GG is called out by Goomba. Well played to both teams, but LDI, their draft looked really solid and they executed it well. I don't think there was really any chance or really any big opportunities for GOOMBA. Even though they started out with a kill advantage, they farmed slower because their lanes were just a little too weak. So, well, let's see. Let's do it. Currently tied up with GOOMBA as far as the wins and losses in the entire JDL series is concerned. So this next game is going to be telling a lot for the standings this season, which is Season 5. Either way, I've been GrandisV, and hope you liked the casting, but whether you did or not, hope to see you back here for game number 2 coming up next.